Hey, it's Coach Cimarroni for Blood Time, and I've got an Ohio State Buckeye on. I love this. Mitch Clark, 1998 national champ. How you doing, brother?
Good, thank you.
And so in 1998, you won your national title, but there was a lot to bring, a lot of history that you brought to that match. Give us a little bit of history about how you started in the sport and really who was your early influencers.
Oh boy, okay, that's a loaded one.
That's okay. We got some time, my friend. We got some time.
Right off the bat, huh?
I love it. Yeah, go for it, bro.
Yeah, so I grew up in northern New York. So
Yep.
I was wedged in between the St. Lawrence River and the Adirondack Mountains, and it's the most rural county in the state of New York. Very far up there, 15 minutes from Canada.
Wow.
So obviously, big hockey area.
Sure.
Not so strong in wrestling.
Gotcha.
Now, New York's divided into 13 sections. 11 sections and 2 private sections to compose the state. We were Section 10, and most schools had roughly 70 some odd, 70 to 80, 90 schools in their county. We had 7.
Gotcha.
And so that wrestled, I should say.
Okay.
And so the whole genesis of it was in New York. You're allowed to wrestle start varsity in 7th grade.
Wow. Okay.
So when I was 12 years old, I made the starting lineup.
Jeez.
And someone said, "Hey, no one from Section 10 has ever won a state title." Now, New York's really weird. When you go to the state tournament, you wear your section's uniform.
Huh.
And back then, they didn't keep team score. It was unofficial. The teams that cared did.
Wow.
But
Wow.
They kept section score.
Okay.
So
Okay.
there was a lot of sectional pride, and I wanted to be Section 10's first.
Sure.
And I can't answer that question right now because I don't want to reveal the dramatic ending.
Okay.
But it was my father was he coached in the town that I lived in, Canton, and it was a Division III St. Lawrence University program that in 1988 they were NCAA champions, and it was
Nice.
one of the last East Coast schools before Wartburg and Augsburg and all those started to win all the titles.
Yeah, I was I was also involved with the John Carroll program. I graduated from there in 80 and 83, and I was the first GA at the program in the early 80s, and I had the honor of coaching under Tony DiCarlo, who won the national title in 75. So, and always was a national powerhouse, particularly during that time.
That's the year I was born.
All right, I love it. Well,
I think John Carroll had a heavyweight that one of the Connors brothers wrestled in the finals, if I'm not mistaken. But
sure. Sure.
I know they were very strong in the 80s.
Yeah, there was a guy by the name of Mark Sullivan who took second twice there, who also played for Ohio State. He was he was Ohio State middle guard. Yep. I interviewed him too. He's the current head coach at St. Ignatius High School here locally. He's a good friend.
Okay, great. I know it was a close match. And, my father moved on in the early 90s to become athletic director of that institution, and in the mid 90s, against his desire, they dropped wrestling. President dropped wrestling, and surprised everyone because they were arguably the strongest program historically on campus.
It's a sad story, but a lot of that story that gets repeated all over the country at different levels.
Yeah. Yep. And but in the early 90s, I was in high school and trying to win that Section 10's first title. My sophomore year, I took 4th.
Okay.
My junior year, I took 2nd.
Awesome.
And essentially in the finals, going into my senior year, I didn't have anyone to work out with. So what I ended up doing was my father 3 times a week brought me to Montreal, Canada, where there was a Russian, and this is when the Soviet Union was still intact.
Yes.
And the communism was it was just a rough place to live. So many Russian wrestlers defected on a tour from into Canada.
Can't blame them, right? Can't blame them.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And their head coach Victor Zilberman was a world champion.
Sure.
And he did the same, and essentially created a powerhouse in Canada.
Wow.
You know, and almost a pipeline for Eastern Bloc countries that wanted to not just escape communism, but live a better life, and obviously make it easier to make an Olympic team.
Sure.
And these guys, I was 17 years old, and these guys were just kicking my butt real bad.
Sure.
It was ugly. And for 3 days a week, we did that. 2.5 hours each way, 5 hours of driving, and 2 hours of getting my butt kicked. And it was a rigorous schedule, but put me in position to win the state title, but I didn't. I lost in overtime in the finals.
Wow.
I was crushed.
Sure. That is motivating, though, my friend.
Yeah. It well, it was one of those, moments where the defining moment in your life, where you're going to quit because you never want to put yourself out there again, or you're going to take that as a motivation. And a month later, I went to the high school nationals, back when there was only one high school national.
Right.
And and nobody knew who I was, so I ended up pinning 4 out of my 5 opponents and getting the outstanding wrestler at the tournament.
Definitely motivating. I get it. That was rocket fuel for Mitch Clark. I love it. And it's interesting, that story that you tell about the Russians, but I had the honor of watching this as a freshman in high school. Our first state champion was also 2-time national champion at John Carroll, Mark Haywald. But his senior year, he had just come off of losing a kidney, and his father brought in Rick Sanders, who was a silver medalist, and Jimmy Carr. Jimmy Carr came in. So I watched, watched Mark, train with Sanders and Carr, and he ended up being our first state champ in the history of Beechwood High School, and then went on to be a 2-time NCAA champion at John Carroll, and then took 5th in the country that same year, D1, back in the day when D3 could. When you could. That was when Carlton Hasselrig was doing his thing at heavyweight. It's crazy, right? So does Ohio State come calling, my friend, after the national title?
Well, okay. So growing up, so my father had, during his coaching career at St. Lawrence University, created a basically a camp system there that was second to none in the state of New York. I mean, they drew over 3 weeks, 750 kids, and last week was called Buckeye Week. So they brought the whole Ohio State coaching staff up.
Cool.
So it was incredible because, again, if you ever saw where I lived, Canton, New York, to have Russ Hellickson, Jim Jordan, Mark Coleman, and all the other greats on the on the Ohio State staff.
Yep.
It was like a week I look forward to all year.
Right. It's like Hollywood's coming to Canton. Yeah. I feel you. Well, Russ is a great guy.
No one in the area knew the magnitude of it, but they would come to our summer home and play volleyball on our beach volleyball court, and we'd just shake our heads like, this is just a who's who in wrestling. And it was just really a neat thing. And so my father and Russ became good friends, and he kept an eye on me. Jim Jordan went to the high school nationals. I think he liked what he saw.
Sure.
Obviously that upped my stock, and then I went on other recruiting trips, but essentially I sort of wanted to reward the individual who was the most loyal to me from the start. Yeah,
and I remember, I was a head coach at a area high school, Beechwood High School, my high school in the early 90s, and we were always like hoping that Ohio State would just do better in recruiting, and so it was great to see that you didn't have a bad recruiting class that year when you got there, and the ensuing years afterwards. So
that was I mean, when you talk to Coach Russ Hellickson, he's the greatest man I've ever met.
He's a great guy.
Anyone would say the same thing that met him. He openly always said, I'm not. Recruiting's not my strong point.
Sure.
That Russ is he's just an honest farm boy, right?
Yes, he is.
So, who doesn't put a lot of pizzazz on anything?
No, he's not sizzle. He's the steak. He's not sizzle. He's the steak.
And to some degree, that might have been his downfall as a coach. But I mean, once you're in the program and I know a lot of people consider him his second father. So.
Yeah, I had the honor of interviewing him in the 90s. I had a radio show, and he was just so doggone genuine and humble. It was unbelievable. But I also coached with Tony DiCarlo, who was the exact opposite of Russ. He would have been a CEO anywhere. He just knew how to sell, and he didn't know the sport that well. But he ended up being the AD and the football coach there. But he just knew how to recruit, and he would get D1 talent coming in there, and they were national champs. Like a Mark Sullivan, So I hear what you're saying, but you still got some fantastic teammates there during that time.
We did, and even after I spent 8 years coaching with Russ after I competed there, and we pulled in Jaggers and Lance Palmer, and Reese Humphrey and J.D. Bergman, and we were poised to do some good things, and then all those guys redshirted, and Jaggers got hurt in the semifinals of the Big Ten, blew his ACL.
Right.
So it was listen, youth is always, Tom, Coach Hellickson was, on the latter end of his career, so
sure,
it was probably time anyway. And obviously Tom Ryan has done more than you could ever imagine. So
yes.
In retrospect, it's probably the right thing that happened. It was tough at the time. It was, candidly, it was very hard on me. I kind of went into a 3-month depression where I didn't know where I was going to go with my life, and Ohio State was everything that I cared and loved. And I thought someday, I didn't really have concrete plans. I just knew that I loved being on staff with the greatest man that I've ever met.
Yes.
And that came to an end, and I didn't know what to do with my life. So.
Well, it was a great life lesson, and made you what you are today, a fully formed adult that does the work. And it's sometimes these tough things really define a man, and it brought you to a situation that you're doing today. And so I want to explore in our second segment, Mitch, your national title and that dominant performance against Jones. But then also, too, how you've taken those lessons that you've learned from Russ and being on the staff with those incredible all-star coaches and what you're doing today, because I saw your clinic and I was deeply impressed. So let's talk about that on the opposite side of this break. I got to take a break for a moment to pay homage to our sponsors. So this is Coach Cimoroni for Blood Time. We'll be back with Mitch Clark right after the break. Hey, and we're back. This is Coach Cimoroni for Blood Time, and I'm with Mitch Clark. Mitch, let's talk about how you got to that national championship and your college career under the tutelage of Russ Hellickson. So share with us that journey.
Yeah, so there was essentially my first 2 years. Well, I walked on campus and I thought I was hot shot because I was on a full ride and
sure,
just coming off a big high school.
Plus, you're 18 years old, and most 18-year-olds are banana heads anyhow. So,
well, right. And Kevin Randleman just finished his illustrious career
sure.
at 177, and I'm the apparent heir. Couldn't be more opposite.
Yes.
Not only how we look, but our styles and everything. But
right.
I mean, that is a guy that was on my walls, on posters on my wall that I just totally thought the world of, and I'm
sure.
like, really, I got to wrestle this guy's weight class now,
Yep.
So it was intimidating and overwhelming, and the training was really hard on me. In the beginning, because again, I'm coming, even though I had wrestled these Russians and all, they didn't train like Big Ten wrestlers, right?
No.
I came in and just got swallowed up in the room, and I was so tired, I was not making class.
Well, people don't realize it's more than a full-time job. Plus, you got to go to school. It's like what?
Yeah.
What?
And I always struggled academically anyway. It's something I just never made a priority, and I'm not condoning that. It's just, it is what it is.
Sure.
And so I struggled, and just to survive, I found I had to sleep in between workouts sometimes, and I'd missed a lot of classes, and
sure.
got a 1-7. So I made the starting lineup, and then halfway through the career through the season, I became academically ineligible. And that's where one of those defining moments in your life. You're like, I'm either going to fail out of school and go back to Canton and figure something out, or or transfer to Syracuse University or something, or I'm going to get my stuff together. And thank God, had good support around me, and
who was instrumental in that? Mitch, who was instrumental in that? I know obviously you have to do it yourself, but who was instrumental?
Yeah, the academic support staff, a guy named John Macco on there. Cool. I mean, he did a phenomenal job there.
Cool.
I mean, obviously Russ Hellickson. One thing I didn't say about Russ, about being a great coach, is the guy could as tired as we were before practice.
Yeah,
he would sense that, and he was a motivational speaker. He spoke for Pfizer and many corporate. And when he would talk to you before practice, you would want to run through the wall for him.
Love that.
They were just like, I wish I had some of these things recorded. It's amazing,
Yep.
And he just really motivated me to new heights. Now, he pulled me aside. He goes, "You got to figure this out, because right now you're ineligible."
Yeah.
Me and my buddy Rob Archer, we're both ineligible. And
gotcha.
Man, that was a dark time in my life.
You had to rip your heart out. You didn't want to.
Yeah.
You didn't want to disappoint. You didn't want to disappoint Russ, man. I get it.
Well, you didn't,
yourself
and your family. It's
sure.
It's completely embarrassing.
Yep.
And that was a dark year for me, to be honest.
Sure.
Just because I got eligible. Had an okay sophomore season, but I weighed 180, wrestling 177.
Yeah.
And that was the day before weigh-in days. So essentially, you're pitted against guys that are coming down 15 pounds heavier. So
sure.
I talked to Mark Coleman, and he at the time creatine was just coming out, and he's like, "Hey, get you on creatine, and you're going to lift with me."
Mm-hmm.
That guy, I'm telling you, you'd get done with a set, and you know how you fail, and maybe you do you do one negative or something. You'd be doing 7 or 8 negatives. He'd be making you cry every single set.
Oh, wow.
And gosh, so I got a lot stronger, just in not so much lifting with him, but lifting under his tutorage. And
sure.
A lot of wrestlers in our era got really strong because of Mark Coleman and his ability.
That is the ultimate beast. He was the ultimate beast. He was.
Yeah. He's the strongest man I've ever. He'd come in the practice room, and I would, the whole thing was, I never scored a point on him. So
jeez.
My buddy Nick Nutter's like, "Hey, you're not going to score on this guy. Just try to make him grimace." So if we made him grunt,
that's fantastic.
That was like a point for us.
That's fantastic. I love that. Well, Nutter wasn't too bad either. He was a pretty good.
No, he was great.
Yeah.
he kept things soft. He always made us all laugh hysterically.
He's a cut up.
Yeah,
no doubt.
Oh, just the funniest guy I've ever met. And in between rounds, the NCAA tournament, when everyone else is all like, all the Iowa guys are grim faced and acting like we're like, just having a blast. And that helps so much keep things light and made wrestling fun, as not fun as it is sometimes. At the Division I level.
Yep. Yeah. Well, that's what Penn State's doing, and they brought that, and Spencer Lee brought it to Iowa. So it seems to work. And, it seems to work. And
I think with Tommy and my brother, Tommy Rollins, and John Clark, my brother, and Blake Kaplan, and Ratliff, and those guys, we all had a blast. And we, our coaching staff was fun. Me and Moran and Russ and Kenny, we all just, we created that same atmosphere, and I think Nick Nutter was the genesis of all that.
That's cool. Cool. So it takes you to your junior year. You make the national finals, and but you have a disappointment.
I did. Again, I got caught up in the cameras and the elevated mat, and it was also the the highest, and I believe still the highest attended finals ever, because it's in the UNI Dome.
Yeah, I've been there.
Northern Iowa, and it just goes up and up and up, and it doesn't stop. And, So you can nosebleed seats up there, but I got distracted and I didn't get in the zone, and but I learned my lesson.
Sure.
And my dad came to Columbus a week later, and he's like, "Hey, I think you got a good story.
Yeah.
If you win next year, I'll hire you an author, and I think we should write a book on your story." So I was like, "All right, well."
That's
no
fantastic.
Pressure, right?
Yeah, no pressure. But hey, you took that mantle, and look out! You put an exclamation point in 1998. So.
Well, I always say, and I say it a lot to people that have been there. If you've been in the NCAA finals, or let's say you've been in the state finals, it's a huge advantage to wrestling it the second time.
Sure.
Because that experience of being there is so valuable.
Yeah.
And so three things happened before that match. On the way there was a traffic jam.
Okay.
And I can see the dome, but we're just sitting there like a parking lot. So I look over at the radio and I turn on the radio. Now this is going to get very cheesy here, but mind you, it's important to the story. So Mariah Carey's song comes on.
Okay.
If you believe in yourself and know that you can, you're going to make it happen.
Wow.
If you get down on your knees at night and pray to the Lord, He's going to make it happen.
Wow.
And I grew up in a very religious family.
Sure.
And faith was part of my, it helped me a lot in my quest to be a national champion. So I was like, oh my, like it literally came onto that song. It wasn't like, 3 songs later that right away it was like, and something I remember saying, turn that radio on. And I heard that, and I turned to Kenny Ramsey and I said, I'm going to win tonight.
I love it. Cheesy but compelling, my friend. Nailed you right between the eyes and the heart, man. It got to you.
And then it was like a foregone conclusion in my mind. Like, I'm just excited for the moment to happen. And then
and you're wrestling a very tough guy. I mean, he's no slouch.
I didn't know anything about him either, And I knew he was real fast, and I am super slow, so I knew that was my Achilles heel.
Yeah.
So I was a little nervous to wrestle, prior to it, but that just eased my mind. And the second thing was that my mom gave me a Bible verse.
Okay.
And I read it, and I just started crying.
I love it.
And that was when I just got to the arena.
And this was in Cleveland, right? Yeah. So I was the head of security.
Right.
In 1998, I remember that.
She had to get special permission to get, and I just started crying. I'm like, all right, I gotta stop crying here. This is silly.
I feel you, man. I remember, and Vertus Jones was ready for that match too. You just took him apart, man.
Yeah.
Tell me a little bit about how that felt. It looked like you were drilling. Like you said to him, here's what I'm going to do to you. And he said, okay, do it. It was just unbelievable.
Yeah. Well,
and I know it wasn't that easy, but it just looked that way.
He hit me in a shot and he got behind me.
Yep.
But I think he was so feeling like, here's the deal.
Yeah.
I'm really unorthodox, and my
Sure.
body, I was 6'3" frame at 177.
Yep.
Was very uncharacteristic. So
Yes.
I think he actually like felt I think he was very taken back at like, all right, what do I do? I think he was second guessing. He got behind me, and the respect he had for me, he let me go because he knew it was a scramble situation.
He said, forget this. I don't want to be a part of that. Gotcha.
Yeah,
I get it.
A crazy thought. Like, all he had to do was mat return me to get 2, but he probably thought, oh, if I mat return him, he's going to Granby on the way down and come up on top, So I think his whole thing was he's going to try to blast double me or what have you.
Yep.
And I just kept digging my underhooks so that and kept the distance away from, kept him tight to me. Caught him in a foot sweep to his back. That helped kind of cushion things, and then I just got going with my figure 4 Turk, which ended up being my signature move.
It's brutal. It's brutal
the
too.
The mentality is, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. So I just kept doing it.
Well, plus you got the 6'3" frame. I mean, you're gonna need a little bit of leverage, my brother.
Right.
So on that Turk, and you were doing it the right way too. So I just loved your hip pressure and the way you just do that. It's just brilliant. Just absolutely great stuff.
Yeah, and because my body, so I do really well against a guy for the first time. If I wrestle someone 2, 3, 4 times, and they start figuring me out, it's real easy. No, I shouldn't say it's real easy, but I incrementally don't do as well as that goes. The more times they wrestle me.
Yeah, because it's probably the first time they feel something like that, pressure-wise.
Well, yeah, like if you asked Anthony Gary, who was my workout partner at Ohio State, Anthony would be like, dude, I used to take him down all the time. And,
right.
Have my way with him on his feet. And, it's because he would wrestle me every day, and he figured me out. And, he felt the wrath of what I could do on top, and figured that out. And,
so stay away from that. Yeah.
Exactly. So I was not a good practice room wrestler at Ohio State. Even my senior year, I struggled in the practice room. But
that's okay, man. You're the national titleist for Ohio State, for the Ohio State University. So how'd that feel? And tell me what you're doing with it.
Well, obviously, great feeling because I wasn't runner-up again.
Exactly.
Days in high school and my junior year of college. So felt amazing. But, it's funny, like, how people are like, well, it's not about winning, it's about the journey, and that kind of is like, yeah, right, BS. But it's half true, like I remember because I always used to look at the person on the top of the podium and be like, I wonder what he's thinking about right now. Right. And so when I got on the podium and I was sitting there and they were taking the pictures and all, and I remember thinking, oh my gosh, this is such a good feeling. I have to do this. I have to get this feeling again. And so I'm like, all right, 2000 Olympic trials, and I already on the top of that podium, I wasn't even sure if I was even going to wrestle ever again.
Sure.
And I'm like, I got to make that Olympic team. Ends up being I just very limited in freestyle, so I obviously didn't make that Olympic team. But it was one of those things where, a lot of people, and you see it a lot in high achieving people where you're like, how do they keep going after, they're, whether it be just successful business, and it's like they got more money than they ever need, but it's that same mentality, like, you just got to keep searching that, and and you search for that high, and it's
that high,
that
feeling of family, that feeling of camaraderie, that feeling of being something bigger than yourself. I think that's what it's all about. And I remember I interviewed one of our two-time state champs from Beechwood who wrestled for John Carroll, and he brought up a comment that I made to him at the state tournament when he won his second state title. I told him, I said, drink it in, brother. Breathe it in and drink it in, because you'll never know if you get this moment back again.
Yeah.
And so I think that's what you did. You drank it in, you breathed it in, and you felt it that moment. And now you're bringing some of that ability to other wrestlers, other athletes that are trying to accomplish what you accomplished. So that's got to be fulfilling.
It is. That's well put. It's fulfilling because, my real job is selling fitness equipment to schools and universities in upstate New York.
Sure.
And I've been doing it for the last 15 years since I coached at Ohio State. And,
okay.
And I love it. I love it in that I love it as much as you can love being a salesman, right?
Yeah.
But it, I'm always in my life looking for that, a high to get, to be number one, to be the best, to try to exceed expectations of the individuals in our company. I remember when I came on board and I was sitting at my desk learning the trade, and the owner of our company, John Murray, he was a three-time Ithaca College Olympic or NCAA championship coach.
Yeah.
And he actually went against my dad a lot. They were rivalries. Okay. And he hired me as soon as he heard I was done at Ohio State. That's a little bit of divine intervention there. But so when I first started, like a week in, I turned around and I said, "Has anyone ever done $2 million in this company?" Yeah. He always tells this story, and he's like, "Nope." And he goes, "That'd be like winning states for Section 10."
Okay.
Okay. And I was like, "All right." And so that became a goal. And then when I got $2 million, I'm like, "Now I got to get $3 million." So I eclipsed $3 million a few times, and you just keep. It's set that tone, at an early age when I was 12, trying to win that first section title.
Love it.
Or, state title for Section 10. And then, that's why younger kids, they need it. And I always say at my camps, I'm like, guys, I know you hear it from every direction. You got to get a goal and you got to write it down, and you're probably sick of hearing it. But if I didn't write that goal down on a piece of paper when I was 12 and live it, then I wouldn't be where I am right now. I wouldn't be in front of you guys and what have you. You got to do it.
With all this incredible, resume behind me. So it's not just what you.
I mean, you heard of all the pitfalls too. I mean, but you will have the resolve that it takes to get to where you need to be. And even if you don't accomplish those things, you're going to be a better husband. You're going to be a better businessman. You're going to be a better,
citizen.
Employee,
just a better part of our society. And Mitch, you're a great part of our society. I really love your story, and I really love how you shared it and what you're doing with it. You're coaching, you're kicking butt in your business, and you're just a thought leader to so many of these young men and women, obviously, that come to some of your camps. And I witnessed it. You're brilliant on top. I just was really impressed with the leverage. And we were big leg riders way back when, and leg guys and position. And I have a term that I use: economy of motion. I want to be in the absolute best position with the least amount of work to get the best results. And you showed that. You showed that in your clinic, and I was really impressed with that. And I thank you for sharing.
Well, it's a niche thing. I mean, it's not. Listen, there's a lot of great clinicians out there.
Of course.
And, obviously bigger names than me every year coming out of college and what have you. But my goal. My dad was very brilliant in the marketing. Right out of college, he's like, "All right, we're gonna write this book. You're gonna make a video, and it's gonna be called Take Top." And I was like, "Oh, that's catchy. I like that."
I like that. Yeah.
And then boot camp was big around that time, so someone gave me the idea to do Mitch Clark's boot camp with a double meaning, throwing the boots and boot camp. So,
I like that.
That became, and then me and my brother John and I created Scrambled Legs, which is a video on scrambling.
Yeah, that's good stuff.
That actually became a coined phrase. Like if you hear Flow Wrestling, they'll and even like Blatnick on ESPN, he'd be like, "Oh, scrambled legs,"
I love it. I love it.
And especially when scrambling became really hot, like 10, 15 years ago.
Yeah, with the funk and all that. Yep.
And then they had to make rules around it, danger rules and all, just to combat it, because it became a whole different art form of wrestling in general. So, but and a lot of people say, well, and I know a lot of people have said it, behind my back, hey, Mitch is a self-promoter, and I was like, yes, I am, because guess no one else is going to promote
exactly
you.
Right. Exactly right.
And
it's not bragging if it's fact, my friend.
So, no, and Frank Popolizio and I always talk about this. It's like, and he always said, you got to make yourself or your product out to be bigger than it is. And,
absolutely.
But at the same time, I think it took me a while to figure out what the heck I was doing with my turns and all.
Sure.
And so the first few years of being a clinician, I didn't really have a system. So I'd just throw a bunch of moves out, throw it against the wall and see what sticks. Right. And then coaches are like, hey, you really have to dial in and try to, I remember, I think it's Brett Powell at Austin Town Fitch. And he's like, here, if you can create a system out of this, people will, and at the time I was like, yeah, that makes sense to me. Yeah. And I created a system, of about 5 moves that all intertwine with each other. Mm-hmm. And then some people are like, well, he's tall and lanky, so that'll work for him. But, I'm 5 foot nothing. And some of my best boot campers, like Vic Voinovich.
Sure. Going to Oklahoma State on a full ride.
And Lance Palmer.
Sure.
They've had more success with legs than I did.
And they're much shorter in stature.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. And so it's not necessarily that, it's how how you adapt it to your own body type. So I mean, a lot of, short Matt Casimir, who's, not tall. And I mean, he picked this up because he was able to adapt it to the way he wrestles and adapt it to his own.
It's all in that short pocket, and it's in every sport. Think about it. You can have guys that are 5'9" and guys that are 6'1" hitting the ball 330 yards. In golf, it's all because the hip and the hands came right together in that pocket. It's exactly what you're doing, and it doesn't matter if you're 6'1" or 5'7". You can be great at it, and I think that's the brilliance of what you're doing. And so, Mitch, I could talk to you forever about this. I love what you're doing, and I love what you've been doing. But we want to close this episode and your great journey with just a word of encouragement or courage to our audience. What would you like to leave our audience with?
You're gonna keep getting knocked down. I mean, when this COVID hit, and this pandemic hit, and everything was shut down, my job, fitness centers, people needed less equipment.
Sure.
Sure. People didn't need me.
Yep.
And no one was doing camps, for the most part. And so I went from not doing, to not having a single goal, and for a while I fell into that statistic where, like, man, this is kind of depressing.
Sure.
I lost my identity. I lost what I'm good at. Yep. And it didn't, I had no reason to get up and to be motivated,
Sure.
And life will just keep beating you down, man, and when you think you got everything figured out, it'll beat you down, and it'll continue to do it. And,
mm-hmm.
You heard all the, whether it be academically ineligible or losing really crushing losses or just losing a job at Ohio State because, there was a change in regime. I mean,
yep.
But, my faith got me through that.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously my ability to try to, find ways to motivate myself to be as best as I can, has set the tone in my life, to get through those hard times.
I love it. So, well, I appreciate that. I appreciate that, Mitch. And that's a great word. There's no answer. You just got to get up every day and just figure it out and keep fighting. And I think that's what a lot of us all did through the COVID. So I appreciate it.
We all have you think, you look at people on social media like, man, their lives are great. Everyone's struggling,
Absolutely.
And you just gotta figure out a way to keep yourself busy and motivated. And,
mm-hmm.
And I'm the first one to say that when I'm not, I'm a different person. So,
I feel you. Yep.
Hey, there's more chapters to go, but,
Absolutely.
Right.
Well, we got Mitch Clark, a man of faith, a national champion, and a heck of a successful sales rep, as well as a great clinician. We were blessed to have you on, my friend.
Well, thank you. That was fun.
Absolutely. From the Ohio State University, it was great to have a Buckeye on, Mitch Clark. This is Coach Cimarroni for Blood Time. We are all blood. Love to all.
This is Mitch Clark. You've just heard another episode of the Blood Time Podcast.
Defense Soap. at defensesoap.com. In the midst of our current health crisis, we at Blood Time want to thank Guy and Gus Seiko and the team at Defense Soap as a beacon of our protection. Body wipes, skin cleansers, bars of soap, shower gels, and disinfectant tablets. All this and more as Defense Soap is on the front line of our protection. Thanks to the Seiko family and their team at Defense Soap. Check them out for all your protection needs during these precarious times. Defense Soap at defensesoap.com.
Men, women, if you want to look great, what are you doing? Why aren't you calling Cimarroni Couture? This is Coach Cimarroni. Call Missy, our CEO. We'll take care of you. 216-496-2592. Pick up the phone. Get those shirts, sport coats, suits, pants, dresses, whatever you need. Finest fabrics, best tailoring on the planet, and right here locally. We'll come to your home, we'll come to your office, or you can come to us. Whatever's your pleasure. Give Missy a call. Cimarroni Couture. Give Missy a call. 216-496-2592. Cimarroni Couture. See Peter Cimarroni, Coach. We are all blood. Love to all. This is Coach Cimarroni for the Montrose Auto Group. If you're looking for a new vehicle or a pre-owned vehicle, Montrose Auto Group is the place to go. They have over 16 dealerships and over 1,300 used vehicles in their stock, as well as a pretty good stock of new vehicles, everything from Range Rovers to Fords. Seek out Montrose Auto Group and the fantastic people at Montrose Auto Group, headed by Mike Thompson and Chris Mills. We love you very much for your support. Thank you so much for your support of Blood Time, my podcast. Seek them out at gomontrose.com for your pre-owned or new vehicles. gomontrose.com. Chris Mills and Mike Thompson, thank you very much. We are all blood. Love to all. So our producer, Maverick Peters' dad, Scott Peters, was a heck of a high school wrestler, and he wrestled every day with the same guy, and they both made the state tournament. That guy was Jack Coslin. He's the owner of Serve Pro of Beechwood. Serve Pro of Beechwood is the industry leader in flood and fire cleanup and restoration, and they serve all of Northeast Ohio. But they're also short of staff. They're looking for team members. And if you're willing to work hard and help homeowners and businesses get their lives back in order and work with a former state qualifier, seek out Serve Pro of Beechwood. They will provide training, support, and of course benefits. So if you're looking for that good entry-level position, seek Jack Coslin, the owner of Serve Pro of Beechwood, at serveproofbeechwood.com. Jack Coslin, thank you. Hey, have you ever wondered how the ultra-wealthy grow their real estate portfolio so fast and furious? Have you ever heard of the infinite banking concept? Learn how you can become your own bank and build out your own real estate portfolio like the pros, like the ultra-wealthy. Call Ed Knezovich or Ryan Miller at Next Level Continuing Education at 614-648-2440. Learn how to purchase investment real estate without spending a dollar of your own capital through Next Level Continuing Education. 614-648-2440.